Back in June 2019, I visited New Ashgate Gallery in Farnham to see their exhibition titled Diaspora. I was so inspired by this exhibition that I knew immediately that I absolutely must bring a version of this seminal exhibition to Salisbury. After many months of preparation and planning, the exhibition was ready to come to Salisbury Arts Centre, but then the lockdown happened. Hello, my name is Mirka Goldenhan and I am resident artist and head of visual arts at Wiltshire Creative. The knock-on effect of the lockdown is the fact that as an organisation we had to take the decision not to run a private view. Instead, we produced this exhibition inside to give the exhibition a wider introduction and to expose various elements of the exhibition's intent, which would otherwise remain hidden. And let's face it, the more restrictions and borders are imposed between us, the more we need to be interested in one another's lives and cultures. The exhibition Diaspora brings together artists and makers of African and Caribbean heritage, the majority of whom have not previously exhibited in Salisbury. The positive consequence of not being able to produce the exhibition in spring, but delivering it now, is the fact that our exhibition is in part coinciding with the Black History Month, which is an annual observance of the outstanding contributions of people of African and Caribbean descent. I'm really thrilled by the opportunity our exhibition offers in terms of an inspiration and learning. Running from Tuesday, 20th of October until our Christmas closure, Diaspora Exhibition is an exceptional opportunity to appreciate and to collect work by artists who bring fresh viewpoints, narratives and values to contemporary arts practice. Now let me tell you a few words about the artists in our exhibition. Rich Miller is a potter whose ceramic vessels are inspired by his own tile production practice, by history and by British colonialism. Other potters in the exhibition are London-based father and daughter Chris Bramble and Freya Bramble-Carter, who combine their shared love of African culture and the connection to the natural world in their work. Barbados-born potter Ronaldo Wiltshire is exhibiting his symbolic pieces in our exhibition. The exhibition further includes prints by Ade Adesina, who creates large-scale lithocuts and etchings. Adesina grew up in Nigeria. In his work, he is fascinated with how the human footprint is affecting our planet. Jeweler Lolonyo Amegai Borbanj grew up in Ghana, wearing traditional waist beads as a child. Each piece of her jewellery is carefully crafted and unique. Her beads and embellishments are handcrafted using traditional methods. She talks about her jewellery as a wearable sculpture. Colorist Atta Kwami is exhibiting a group of his watercolor and gouache pieces, exploring the dynamism, rhythmic structures and the power of improvisation in African visual arts practice. Voley Lagunju's work celebrates the vigor and energy of Yoruba culture and the significance of the mask, whilst representing the challenges of globalization and the impact of the West on African traditional arts. Textile artist Onome Otite is influenced by traditional West African textiles, and through her work she references the theatrical, character-driven approach to storytelling and she aims to draw the audience into this performance she creates. Ufuoma Omoluru is a fashion designer who has recently moved from Nigeria to Amesbury. Her practice is based around her passion to make women feel empowered in the colourful clothes she makes. Clifton Powell is an artist who lives in Vases, and through his paintings he explores a wide range of subject matters. He is heavily influenced by the situations people find themselves in. In relation to art, the term diaspora has been used to discuss artists who have migrated from one part of the world to another and who express their diverse experience of culture which they identify in their work, often expressing alternative narratives and challenging ideas and structures. I'm really pleased to say that I am now joined by the curator of the original Diaspora Exhibition at New Ashgate Gallery, Rachel Otemglati, with whose help and knowledge the Salisbury Exhibition materialized. Rachel, I still remember talking to you at New Ashgate and you explaining to me the reasons why you felt it's so important that this exhibition happens, and that you felt so passionate about curating this exhibition. Could you please share these reasons with our viewers?
Yeah, for sure. So it first kind of came to fruition or came into my mind because as you can probably tell from my surname, I am married to a Ghanaian man, and we have 3 daughters. And my eldest daughter comes with me to lots of exhibitions in and around London, lots of private views and exhibition openings and that kind of thing. And one day I came home from work and she asked me, she was asking me about the people that I work with, who they are, what do they look like, where do they come from, all those kind of things. And the gallery, New Ashgate Gallery, is in a very white neighbourhood. It's in Farnham. It's predominantly monoracial. So, and I had watched a talk by Nick Sirota, who was the head of the Arts Council, who gave a talk on how we all need to do better in terms of diversity in the arts. And he gave some statistics within his talk, which I will just read to you now, which basically said that visual art spaces, they are great at employing women. So 64.8% of employees within arts organisations are female, but they're not so great at employing people from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. So it's only 2.7 people within the visual arts are from that background, which, given the general makeup of our country, needs to obviously improve. So I started thinking about the reasons as to why that was the case. I also started thinking about the programming that we had at the gallery, whether that was necessarily representative of our local community, if we could do better, basically. So I had more discussions with my daughter. We went to the National Gallery, and she said to me that a lot of the artwork on the walls didn't feel like it belonged to her. She couldn't see herself represented. It didn't look like the art that we had at home, because we have quite a lot of West African art, East African art as well, actually. Different things within our home, lots of lovely colours and vibrant works. And it just kind of led on to this discussion. And then I kind of thought, well, actually then I need to be a part of trying to do something about this. So I went to the the maternity cover director at the time, Victoria Shearing, and discussed with her. And she said for me to run with it, to go with the idea for the exhibition. So I started the research, and as I was researching, I just found there was so much talent that I wanted to include. So it started off being kind of a 4 or 5 or 6 artists, and it ended up being way more than that. And how do you represent an entire continent of people, or diaspora of people, in such a, number one, small gallery, but in within a limited time frame? So we kind of narrowed it down, chose some great artists, and that's where we kind of got to.
Oh, yes, thank you. So from the selection of the artists in New Ashgate, we then looked at whom we can include in Salisbury, because of course the circumstances of the artist practices has changed. Some were not able to some were not able to be included in our exhibition, but we also, looking at the sort of selection, wanted to include some voices who already practice within Wiltshire, which was, I think, very and the reason why I wanted this exhibition to come to Salisbury when I saw it was because, in my opinion, Wiltshire is a county where much more should be done in terms of connecting with different ethnic groups, and in terms of just educating about diversity. But I know we also touched up and talked together before about the fact, why is it so important that artists from the sort of heterogenic cultural heritages are, and who are based in other parts of UK, and mainly in London, for example, need to seek new audiences outside zones. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I would say that actually, when the media or when organisations often talk about Black history, they think of it as separate to British history, or as something that needs to be taught or kind of separated from. But actually, Black history is British history. We have a rich history, good and bad, where we have been around the world, we have done amazing things, we have done some reprehensible things. And the history that we have within the UK, it isn't about being derogatory about our history at all. It's about looking at actions within our past. It's about celebrating our future. It's about celebrating our diversity and the diverse talent and knowledge and backgrounds that people come from, and about celebrating that as the whole, rather than thinking of things as being separate from, or not what's the right word, not relevant to us. So I think the exciting thing and the important thing about the Diaspora Exhibition coming to places where there may not necessarily be a huge population of people from Black and ethnic minorities, it's still important to show work from people from diverse backgrounds, because we learn new things, we enjoy new visual languages, we see creativity that we might not have seen ordinarily, and it's just remarkably important to be able to do that in places outside of London, where obviously the population is more diverse, and there are lots of great projects going on, but it's always been kind of outside of London is less quick on the uptake for these kind of exhibitions. So that's why I'm incredibly grateful that you guys have taken it and run with it.
Oh no, it was long overdue, I think. And yes, it was reading some of the writing that you did about the exhibition. You sort of did highlight it exactly, this sort of new viewpoints, which those particular artists of African and Caribbean heritage bring to the canon of art.
Yeah.
And when I look at the selection of the work that we selected for the Salisbury diaspora,
Yeah. Yeah.
there really is the sense of liberation from some of the constraints that are so widely accepted by sort of European aesthetics.
Yeah.
And that is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And in many of the included works, the way that the artists deal with narrative, the way that they comment, and the celebration and the release of passion, which is in those artworks, you really kind of feel it from
exactly. I would say that Onome, for example, her work is just so joyous. It has this rich background and history, because she works with Ade and Ankara textiles, which are traditional Nigerian textiles. She uses these textiles in a way that is modern, because it's reusing, it's looking at ecology and recycling and repurposing, which is obviously a very modern thought. So she kind of marries these two worlds of these traditional textiles with a nod to her heritage, but also this desire to kind of bring around joy and storytelling and narrative within her work as well, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, and then on the other hand, we will have Clifton's paintings, and some of which they are kind of like a journalism or visual journalism, and yes, and so we do have the joyous on one part, but we also have kind of the observation of the
social commentary.
The social commentary, and things that really kind of pains us all, and so it is quite a I think it will be very powerful exhibition, and like you said, there is so much that we can learn in entering in conversation and in kind of taking in the work of artists who come from other cultures and have different experience, and sharing those, I think, enrich all of our lives. And I'm really pleased that you agreed to run the interviews with some of the artists, and so I will hand over to you now, and yes, thank you.
Okay, so a couple of questions about your work and your practice and all the things that you might have going on at the minute. Can you just give us a little bit of background about your work, how you got to working with Ankara fabric, and a little bit about Ankara fabric as well, generally, just for people who don't know?
Okay, so I have been working as an artist for 4 years now. My first 2 series of work, I have sort of been influenced by West African sort of culture, and costume. I'm Nigerian, so that's kind of, I grew around women wearing beautiful costumes, wearing lavish head wraps, and their shoes are matching their bag and gold, and it, for me, it's kind of like a celebration of womanhood, a celebration of life, of energy, and I love color and I love pattern, and so it was kind of it was just kind of a fit, really, just because I feel like color is something that breeds energy, that gives off happiness and joy, like all the things that I had associated with sort of like my aunties and relatives,
all those family events and all the things in your background, your childhood.
So it was kind of like it was like a natural fit. It was just something that I just gravitated towards. So I kind of just chose to use the fabric as kind of a homage. So there's loads of sort of there's loads of sort of Nigerian textiles and Adinkra and different just different materials. But like I said, I gravitated towards the wax print because of the color and the patterns and the shapes.
Yeah.
But then there's that whole thing with it not actually being African. It's a Dutch cloth and all these all these connotations with the fabric, which I also like as well, because I'm trying to tell stories. I'm trying to feed a narrative.
So are there any fabrics that you have used that are extra special to you, that have got a special story or something that reminds you of a certain time in your life? Or
I mean, all the fabrics I use are recycled, so they were once worn by someone else. So I have like old clothes. So this is, don't know how much of it you'll see, but this is like one of my mum's old outfits.
oh,
So
okay.
skirt and a blouse, and this is like
In Nigeria, what's the name for that outfit?
this is just like a skirt and blouse.
Okay.
Skirt and top. And then the matching head wrap as well. And you can kind of see how I've hacked it.
Oh yeah. It's got no back.
Yeah. Whenever anyone gives me something, I'll always be like, where did you wear it? Where did you buy it from? Because it has stories, it has narratives around it. So yeah, so there's not one that's particularly that I like the best. They're all quite personal in a sense, that I kind of know where that fabric came from. That's part of my sister's dress. Oh, that was when my mum gave me that fabric that she didn't want to, but she gave it to me anyway. So there's all these stories behind it for me, and somebody else to come and to project their own stories. It's just like the story continues. So that's nice.
So can you give us a little bit of history about you and how you came to, start painting, and your kind of art background, and also how you've come to be living where you are now?
Well, my dad was an artist, really.
Yeah.
But his official work was, what the people, people give him like, what does he do? He design water resistance barrier for properties and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to be an engineer, you have to know something about art, innit?
You have to be a designer, don't you? And you have to understand scale and proportions and all those kind of things.
Yeah. So he taught me how to draw when I was about 9 or something, and I've been drawing since. And I mean, when I was young, I used to, on Christmas, my dad wanted to buy me toys, and I always asked him brush and paint. And he used to say, why? Every kid wants like a bike or something.
Yeah, or a football. Or footballs or something, that you can play with.
Well, I want, because I enjoy what I did.
Obviously, we're missing out huge chunks of your history, but you're now here in the UK. You're living out of London, in Wiltshire, in the countryside. How is it living where you are currently?
Well, I have to choose, because I was living in London, in Brixton, near Brockwell Park.
Yeah.
And although I used to do a lot of painting, because I was established with an organization called Temple, which is a African art distributor in Brixton.
Yes.
And they were one of the #1 African distributor for artwork and stuff. So I was working with them because they came to Jamaica when there was an exhibition in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And they came to check out the work. And we met there, and they were having an exhibition in London, and I sent up a few pieces with them. So I came over for that exhibition and then started working with them.
Okay.
When I came over. But then, you know, when I was in Jamaica, it was isolation for me. So I'm used to isolation because, you know, that's what it takes to paint, because there's a lot of distraction.
Yeah.
When I was living in London, I used to get a lot of people come and see me any hours of the day. You know, them Jamaican guys, they don't do phone call. They just turn up and they will stay all day.
You're now in Wiltshire, in the countryside, and Wiltshire is not known for its massively diverse population, obviously.
Well, I don't have to be diverse if I want to do what I need to do.
Exactly.
If you know, I know what you're talking about, but you know, in the countryside, it's you know, you can see clearly now. You know that song that Jimmy Cliff sings? I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I will, you know, I can spin that over and make that suit the occasion, because you can see from miles away, and you don't have to live in a village or a neighborhood.
No.
If you really don't need to or you don't want to. So, you know what I mean? You go after what you want, that type of living, so you can get to work.
Maybe just talk us through a couple of the pieces that we've got in the show. One that I'd like you to give a bit of an explanation about is the one with the granny in. You give us a bit of that one.
Well, it's just because it's your favorite.
I mean, it might be.
This is good. Well, you know, I go through a really long process of painting, and I always paint a group of paintings. Like the African paintings, they were really portraits of African, with, you know, with a trousers or something have a little bit of rip on it, so it's showing you the depth more than just the portrait itself. And there is always a focal point. But when I came to England, now I have an international experience or more experience of what's going on over the world. And then when I told you that I was into Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and them guys, is because they do a lot of portrait, but some of their subjects are current affair.
Yeah, exactly.
Things that really happen.
Almost journalism in a way. Almost. Obviously, your work isn't photography, but it's projecting something that's happening in the world at a specific time. And you're right, Leonardo.
That's what
it's exactly the same. It's this journalistic, but fantastical journalistic.
Yeah. Massive, and everything is involved in it. Look at the little dog barking at that geezer while he's trying to choke that man, something like that. But that's what they do. So it is my obligation to take the work to a process, bring it to, you know, this. Bring it to the rigorous process of how it's been done. It's like doing, you know, you can sing, but you can sing, that's not all. You're making records, but that's not all as well. You know, when you start talking about something, not dating a music, you know, but talking about something that goes on and on, something that is substantial and stays within civilization for a long time, no, everything start getting important. And I think that's why Granny get involved. Granny get involved because the younger ones, them, when they see police, they start throwing rocks and running up and down and tear gas and water cannon and stuff. You can't stop a Granny, can you? She don't care about your little water cannon.
No. And also, you can't fight back a granny, can you?
No. And that is the stage where the unrest of the world in this time. That is a mid-stage between the unrest for adult and unrest for the younger generation.
What's your background? Your I guess your educational or your training first of all, but then how has your work progressed over the years, and what point are you at now?
I started off at Hastings.
Yep.
Hastings College, doing exhibition design, and part of the exhibition design was making things in cardboard, plastics, wood, steel, etc.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the clay part.
Ah.
So before I got my diploma, about 6 weeks before I got my diploma, I dropped that.
Yeah.
And got together a portfolio and applied for different colleges like Bristol and Bath and such, and I never got in.
Yeah.
And I ended up, some people heard about my work from Glasgow School of Art.
Right, yeah.
Because my A-level work I did in Hastings got taken up by the London people that do A-levels.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like
and they thought it was great, and they kept it in London for exhibition, and the Glasgow people heard about it, and they came down, gave me an interview, and they wanted me straight into their course, and I did my BA honours there, and I stayed up there for 10 years because things were going so well.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mum lived in Hastings, so I thought I'd come back down to London because everything was getting sold in London anyway. So I just thought I'd come back to London and stayed in London, got a little studio. Then after about 7 years, did my master's at Harrow.
And is that that's where you know Merca from? Because
yes.
Yeah. So moving on from, when did you first get your studio at? It's Kingsgate, isn't it?
Yeah, Kingsgate, 30 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So
I think it's about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
The way I see it in London, once you've moved all your gear into one place, to move all your kilns and everything, it's a nightmare.
No, you don't want
to
have it anywhere. It's fair enough.
Yeah. And if it works, why change it? Now I've got my own identity in my work with my human elements, and but that only came about when I was in Zimbabwe, because I was a thrower before at Glasgow, and I did a little bit of, I didn't do much modelling there at all, but once I got to Zimbabwe and I became the exhibition officer of the National Gallery for 2 years, and behind the gallery was a carving workshop which carved serpentine, birdite and soapstone. I used to spend my weekends, Saturday and Sunday mornings there carving, and learnt how to take the spirit out of a stone or reveal a spirit out of the stone. And once I came back to England, I was able to lend that to the clay practice.
Yes. That's a nice point. Have you written that down?
No. And through that sort of self-training and training with other sculptors, I was able to understand how, say if you're throwing a pot, if you sing your favourite song while you're throwing the pot, you'll get a better pot and you'll have more feeling, and it's like a needle on a record.
Yeah.
And it actually imbues the pot with a bit of your spirit.
Okay. So it's almost more of a holistic kind of making thing. So you're bringing other factors into it rather than it just being, hands throwing.
Hands, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So what are you currently working on?
What am I currently working on? bit more abstract,
Yeah.
more brighter colours. Can't really show you anything, but I've done quite a lot of tile work, a lot of coloured works.
Yeah.
Quite looking again at Michel. It's a Michel Basquiat.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking how he moved from street painting to canvas work, and trying to make sense of what he was influenced by and how he brought things about.
Yeah.
Because I find his stuff just as confusing and intimidating as when I was young, when I used to like Michael Jackson and stuff, and then all of a sudden somebody would bring me in Jimi Hendrix, and I would think,
mess everything up.
Yeah, where's the verse and chorus in that? Do you know Jimi Hendrix?
Yes.
Yeah. So
wow.
so it's the same kind of confusion, but another confusion in art, and trying to read through and understand.
Trying to find a common ground, I guess, like something that you can kind of link to. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So could you give us a little bit of background on you? Obviously, you've basically been born in a kiln, by the looks of it, in the nicest possible way.
I've never heard that one. That's a good one.
You've been in and around ceramics since birth, basically.
Yeah, I've been around it, and I mean, I think when your parents do something, whatever you grow up with close to you, I suppose you take it for granted. It was just normal for me to play with clay on the weekend when I'm with Dad or whatever. So it was just very normal and very boring, to be honest. I was just hanging around. We'd have to just like wait for him and help him. And often we do lots of the chores like pugging the clay and stuff, which is quite an intensive thing to do if you've ever tried it. It's really, it's hard work.
Yeah, hard work helps with the muscles.
Yeah, but that's how we got our pocket money often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was about, and I think I started to take it seriously when I was but I noticed I had an affiliation with it when I was in university. I was studying fine art, and I found I was just always in the ceramic studio. Straight after uni, I wasn't really doing anything but rubbish jobs, and I thought, you know what, why don't I just start teaching? And I just started teaching kids, and just to get some pocket money. And I just said, Dad, can I help you? And we started to help each other, and because I was learning through all the mistakes of everyone that was teaching, as well as my own mistakes. So, and I was really interested in the communication, in actually how to articulate the beauty of the material, and to, when you're sharing a knowledge, when you're passing something over, it's a very fine balance, passing it on in a way that is in a positive, open, or you want them to see the magic in it. You want them to see what you see, but everyone interprets learning so differently. So I really spent years just honing that down, like just being with people.
Yeah.
And then when I was ready, I started to do more of my own work, and I started to create a style for my pieces. But I mean, since I started, I think I've been exploring and experimenting, especially with glazes, and I don't see myself fixed in any particular style right now. But the more I go on, the more I see, I really like that, I really like that, and you just keep refining and adding two favorite bits that you like and putting them together. And I still feel like I've got a really long way to achieve the sorts of things that are in my head, if you know what I mean.
Do you ever feel kind of torn between, obviously there's the need to kind of do those commissions to bring in money, and I'm sure that you have like a following that you don't really want to disappoint, but do you ever feel torn between doing those commissions and dinner sets, etc., versus the elaborate forms that you'd love to do that might not be as commercial, but
Yeah.
to make.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, that having a good balance of the two is quite good because they bounce off of each other.
And what your dad was saying about the stone carving and it being almost this kind of spiritual thing of revealing an essence of spirit within. How much is kind of spiritualism or that kind of thing involved in your work?
Yeah, well, for me, first of all, I kind of ingrain it into my daily normal practice. Like, I'll wake up, I think I have a lot. I feel like my daily routine is more sort of spiritual in terms of I'm thinking about every moment and every interaction that I have and making it a nice one. But I will meditate during the morning and throughout the day, and it also comes into the work. So especially when I'm throwing, I'll listen to something nice or reflect on what's going on at the moment, how I'm feeling, just let the emotions come and kind of ruminate in them. And it comes through your fingers it sounds a bit funny, but it comes through.
I mean, your dad said the same thing, that if you listen to a certain song, something that is your favorite piece of music, then it flows through you and it becomes within what you're making. So is that, I guess that's a similar thing.
It's a very similar process. And especially when you're sort of brainstorming with your hands and not your mind. So you're coming up with new forms and stuff, and so it's like having a doodle moment but on the wheel, and you just randomly do lots of shapes, and it's the same process. You just get into a flow moment and you just let go a little bit.
So thank you for joining me today.
Rachel, good to see you.
and you. So could you give us a little bit of a background as to how you came about making your sculptural jewellery pieces?
Yeah, so I started beading. Well, I did a mini beading workshop in 2009 when I was on maternity leave with my son Maximilian. And as you do during maternity, you just think, I need to do something else apart from being with a child.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I did a mini beading workshop with Kati Toda in Ghana. Yeah. So I went to Ghana for 3 months, basically just to have a change of scenery as well, and did a 45-minute beading workshop with her. So she sort of showed me how to use the metal, do the ends, and sort of, had a draft that I was meant to do.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved it, and I thought, this is something I could maybe do. Yeah. But then I just made a few pieces for myself. Life took over, never did anything with it. And but then I sort of kept creating pieces for myself. And one of the mums at school actually saw one of my pieces and said, where did you purchase it from? And I said, I didn't purchase it, I made it. Yeah. And she said, what do you mean you made it? And I said, well, yes, I make jewelry. I mean, I make beaded jewelry. Yeah. Using, gemstones, wood, glass beads. And she said, you should definitely sell it. And I thought, not really sure about that.
Yeah.
But then I said, okay, you know what, let me just try. So end of 2016, I did a few pieces, went to there was a craft fair in Streatham. So I booked a table. I said, okay, let me just go see what people would say. So more or less as market research to see, okay, would people really be interested in that?
Yeah.
Did that, got a lot of, this is amazing. So I thought, okay, maybe I should do it.
Yeah.
And then in 2017, I officially started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's, 3 years.
3 years of practice, reading. Basically. Yeah. But so obviously your background, you're half Ghanaian.
Yes. half Ghanaian, half German.
Half German. So your Ghanaian heritage informs quite a lot of your beading and your designs, but there's obviously a very modern sculptural element to your work as well. Do you think that it's having that dual identity and dual heritage that's maybe kind of fused those two parts of your work together?
Definitely, because I mean, obviously I grew up in Ghana, so I spent 14 years of my life in Ghana. I always had beads around me. I mean, you know, in Ghana, you're always wearing waist beads or beads. I mean, when you go to the villages, you always have the beads, not in sort of the city. It's only in recent years that people have started appreciating beads.
Yeah.
And I then always thought, okay, you know what? The beads are absolutely stunning. They're rough around the edges, but they're beautifully made.
Yeah.
And I just wanted people to realize that a bead doesn't have to be perfect in order to look great.
Beautiful, yeah. Where would you like to go with your work? What would be the dream?
Well, I mean, I have to say, I mean, as you already said, I don't really want to link myself to fashion, because a lot of times fashion is still sort of, yes, it's fast. It's, you know, they see a piece, they love the piece, but they don't really appreciate the work that goes behind it. So, so for example, I mean, I used to be in shops, but I took my items out because I said, people just don't appreciate the work there, or they don't see what goes into the work. So I've sort of now started more the pop-up things, because where I can be there, or where, you know, someone is there who knows what I do and explains the work.
I see.
And I have to say, what I loved last year as well was being able to be in the gallery, because I thought that was a really, really lovely exposure for my work, because you can use it as an accessory, but also you can use it as something that a home decor item.
Well, that's it. So there was a client at the New Ashgate Gallery who bought one of the long wraparound necklaces. Sorry, forgive me, I can't remember the name of the work, but she
Aphrodite,
Aphrodite, that's it. So I remember her coming into the gallery, and she bought it precisely because she said she could see herself wearing it, but then when she wasn't wearing it, it could become a sculpture within her home.
Yeah. I think what I still need to do is sort of educate people on what it actually means, like what the process is, and that it has, that it's all about being ethical, presenting the artisan's work. I mean, because again, I absolutely value every single bead that I have, because I think, oh my goodness, I mean, the work that goes into it, from crushing the glass to having it sift, to then putting it, you know, in the molds that are also handmade, to then putting it in the furnace, to then painting them, or you know, refiring them again, and then putting them on the stone to make them smooth. It's just, there's so much love that goes into the making, that I want people to actually realize that there's a lot more involved than just the finished piece.
Sure. And I guess that's the joy of your work, is that by making sometimes quite elaborate designs, it's a celebration of the tiny, but on a bigger scale.
Exactly, because I always say it starts with one little bead.
Yes.
That one little bead has had a long journey as well.
I know, has come across the world.
Exactly.
Come and make this beautiful end piece.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Well, thank you.
I'm really, really looking forward to seeing your work at Salisbury. I think it's going to be a fab show to have everybody all there together.
I can't wait.
Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to know a little bit more about your craft and where you learnt to sew and create and make all of your beautiful designs.
Yeah, well, for me, it all started as a hobby, a passion. Yeah, I've always loved fashion. I've always loved, you know, DIY, working with my hands, creating beautiful pieces, you know. So after my graduation from university, I always knew I didn't want to go for the, you know, white collar job. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know where it was going to lead me until I spent some time in Cote d'Ivoire, that's Ivory Coast, that's West Africa, for a while. And in that country, they have very good designers, and the women always look so beautiful with simple pieces, well made. And that was where I picked up from. Yeah.
Okay. With your pieces, because they do have some quite modern twists with them in terms of like the layering and things. Is that something that you find quite important, to be able to fuse that traditional fabric with the modern construction, I guess?
Well, it depends on what you're going for. As in many fabrics, you have the retro, you have the vintage, as in, there are these ones that they've been there for years, from the inception of African print. We call those vintage wax. And the difference is that they have certain designs that you use to identify what print is vintage and what print is contemporary. So it depends on what you want to work with. They are all beautiful pieces, but some people like to go vintage with the vintage and stay there, the classic Ankara. But the new contemporary designs are more like Western designs. You have, they look, if you don't really know much about them, you think they are Western prints. Why in actual fact they are African prints. So they come with burst of colors, a lot of abstract designs. Yeah. So it depends on what you want to go for.
So if you were to choose 3 words that kind of sum up your work, what would they be?
Simple. Classy.
Yeah.
And elegant.
Good. And what's your experience of working within Wiltshire? Because me and Mirka were discussing earlier that it's obviously it's not the most diverse of I was going to say boroughs, areas. And so I guess I just want to know what your kind of audience is and who generally buys your pieces. What's the reception been?
Well, yeah, the reception has been really great. I moved into the country just before the lockdown, just before the COVID pandemic crisis. So I was kind of stuck in, I was just waiting to get out there. So just as the lockdown was being eased, I had this exhibition with Sally Edwards. I saw on Instagram and I went out for the exhibition and it was fantastic. People were just coming in. They wanted to, they were so thrilled by the burst of colors, and they were able to see African designs up close. So it was really good. It was great. And something that really fascinated them was my making face masks with the Ankara fabric. It's really, it was a huge success, and they embraced that a lot. Some people were so scared of the colors and they're like, no, I love it, but I can't wear it, And there were others that would come and say, oh, I've always wanted this. And they just buy the pieces and they were just, ready to show off. So far, so good. People that patronize me cuts across different ethnic groups. Yeah. I have people from the Caribbean descent. As customers, and I also have Africans, then some whites, like Milka, for instance. She absolutely loved the designs, and you can see she loves wearing them. So for now, basically I do online, and as time goes on, I hope to spread my horizon and to reach more persons and to put African fabric out there, and to show how it can be worn. You don't have to wear the full fabric. It could just be the neck piece. It could be a scarf, it could be a turban, It doesn't have to be the full piece, for those who are scared of wearing colors. And it could also be your cushion it could be a decoration in your house.
So do you have one specific fabric that you absolutely love working with, or one pattern that really excites you? No, you don't have a favorite?
When I go shopping for fabrics and they tell me, oh, this is nice, you need to take it, I say, no, the fabric has to speak to me. Fabrics communicate. If it speaks to me, it just tells me, I can do something with it. There's this instant communication between the fabric and myself, and I just grab it. I may not know what I'm going to work with. I may not know what I'm going to do with it, but I just buy it and I keep it there. Someday the inspiration just comes and I just, go with it.
The fabric speaks to you, not the other way around.
No. I don't speak to the fabric. It just tells me, oh yeah, come here, buy me. You can do something with me.
That's good. Oh, well, thank you so much for answering questions today. I'm really looking forward to your work in the exhibition, I think it's going to be a really, really lovely show. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I hope to bring Africanness closer to the Salisbury community. And since I noticed a lot of people are scared of wearing colors, I tend to go for scrunchies, for turbans, for neck piece, cushions like this, you know.
I think
and bags.
That's it. I think Wiltshire is ready for some colour and some bright colours and some excitement. You know.
Yeah, this winter we need to pop up. We need to spice. Yeah, we need to spice up the winter. Really.
Yeah, definitely.
I totally agree with that. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the artists in our exhibition who have worked with us exceptionally hard in order to make this exhibition happen in a very short space of time. I would like to also say thank you to New Ashgate Gallery for collaborating with us on this project, and I especially would like to say thank you to Rachel. And finally, my thanks goes to my colleagues from Wiltshire Creative who worked on the production of this really exciting exhibition. The Salisbury exhibition Diaspora is running at Salisbury Arts Centre, Bedwin Street, from 20th of October till 19th December. Our opening hours are Tuesday till Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturday, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. When visiting, please wear face covering in our exhibition area and follow the rules of social distancing. If you would like more information about this exhibition, please do get in touch. And thank you for watching this video and looking forward to seeing you at Salisbury Arts Centre.